Diamond cut diamond. In a village in Hindustan, there once lived a merchant who, although he rose early, worked hard, and rested late, remained very poor, and ill luck so dogged him that he determined at last to go to some distant country and try his fortune there. 12 years passed by. His luck had turned, and now he had gathered a great wealth, so that having plenty to keep him in comfort for the rest of his days, he thought once more of his native village, where he desired to spend the remainder of his life among his own people. In order to carry his riches with him in safety over the many weary miles that lay between him and his home, he bought some magnificent jewels, which he locked up in a little box and wore concealed upon his person, and, so as to not draw attention of the thieves who infested the highways and made their living by robbing travelers, he started off on one of the poor clothes of a man who had nothing to lose. Thus prepared, he traveled quickly, and within a few days' journey from his own village came to a city where he determined to buy better garments, and, now that he was no longer afraid of thieves, to look much more like the rich man he had become. In his new raiment he approached the city, and near the great gate he found a bazaar, where, amongst many shops filled with costly silks, carpets, and all other kinds of goods from other countries, was one finer than all the rest. There amidst the goods, spread out to the best advantage, sat the owner, smoking a long silver pipe, and there the merchant bent his steps and saluted to the owner politely, and sat down also, and began to make some purchases. Now, the proprietor of the shop, Bika Mole by name, was a very shrewd man, and as he and the merchant conversed, he soon felt that his customer was richer than he seemed, and was trying to conceal that fact. Certain purchases having been made, he invited the newcomer to refresh himself, and in a short time they were chatting pleasantly together. In the course of the conversation, Bika Mole asked the merchant where he was traveling, and hearing the name of the village, he observed, "Ah, you had better be careful on that road. It's a very bad place for thieves." The merchant turned pale at these words. It would be such a bitter thing, he thought, just to end his journey to be robbed of all the fortune he had heaped up with such care. His bland and prosperous Bika Mole must surely know the best. So presently he said, "Lalaji, would you oblige me by locking up for me a small box for a short while? Once I get to my village, I could bring back half a dozen sturdy men of my own kinfolk and claim it again." The Lala shook his head. "I could not do it," he replied. "I am sorry, but such things are not my business. I should be afraid to undertake it." "But," pleaded the merchant, "I know no one in the city, and you must surely have some place to keep your own precious things. Do this, I pray you, as a great favor." Still, Beeka Mole politely but firmly refused. But the merchant, feeling that now he had betrayed the fact that he was richer than he seemed, and being loth to make more people aware of it by inquiring elsewhere, continued to press him until at last he consented. The merchant produced a little box of jewels, and Beeka Mole locked it up for him in a strong chest with other precious stones, and so, with many promises and compliments, they parted. In a place like an eastern bazaar, where the shops lie with wide open fronts, and with their goods displayed not only within but without terraces and verandas, raised a few feet above the public roadway, such a long talk as that between Beeka Mole and the merchant would not but attract some attention from the other shopkeepers in the narrow street. If a merchant had known it, nearby every shop owner in the district was a thief, and the cleverest and biggest of all was Beeka Mole. But he did not know it, only he could not help feeling a little uneasy at having thus parted with all his wealth to a stranger, and so, as he wandered down the street, making a purchase here and there, he managed in one way or another to ask some questions about the honesty of Beeka Mole, and each rascal whom he spoke to, knowing that there would be some good reason in the question, and hoping to in return to get a share of the spoils, replied in praise of Beeka Mole as a model of all the virtues. In this way, the merchant's fears were stilled, and with a comparatively light heart, he traveled on to his village, and within a week or so returned to the city with half a dozen sturdy young nephews and friends, whom he had enlisted to help him carry home his precious box. At the great marketplace in the center of the city, where the merchant left his friends, saying that he would go and get a box of jewels and rejoin them, to which they consented, and away he went. Arrived at the shop of Begamol, and went up and saluted him. "Good day, Lala Ji," he said, but Lala pretended not to see him, so he repeated the salutation. "What do you want?" snapped Begamol. "You said your good day twice. Why don't you tell me your business?" "Don't you remember me?" asked the merchant. "Remember you?" growled the other. "No, why should I? I have plenty to do to remember good customers without trying to remember every beggar who comes whining for charity." When he heard this, the merchant began to tremble. "Lala Ji!" he cried. "Surely you remember me and the little box I gave you to take care of, and you promised, yes, indeed, you promised very kindly that I might return to claim it, and—" "You scoundrel!" roared Beacon Mo. "Get out of my shop. Be off with you, you impudent scamp. Everyone knows that I never keep treasures for anyone. I have enough trouble to try to keep on my own. Come off with you." With that, he began to push the merchant out of his shop, and when the poor man resisted, two of the bystanders came to Beacon Mole's aid and flung the merchant out into the road, like a bale of goods dropped from a camel. Slowly he picked himself up out of the dust, bruised and battered and bleeding, but feeling nothing but the pain in his body, nothing but a dreadful numbing sensation that, after all, he was ruined and lost. Slowly he dragged himself a little further from where the fat and furious Beeka Mole stood amongst his disordered silks and carpets, and coming to a friendly wall, he crouched and leant against it, and putting his head into his hands, gave himself up to the agony of misery and despair. There he sat motionless, like one turned to stone, while darkness fell around him, and when, about 11 o'clock that night, a certain gay young fellow named Cushy Ram passed by him with a friend, he saw the merchant sitting hunched against the corner, and remarked, "A thief, no doubt." "You're wrong," replied the other. "Thieves don't sit in full view of people like that, even at night." And so the two passed on, and thought no more of him. About 5 o'clock next morning, Cushy Ram was returning home again, when, to his astonishment, he saw the miserable merchant still sitting as he had seen him a few hours before. Surely something must be the matter with the man who would sit all night in the open street, and Cushy Ram resolved to see what it was. So he went up and shook the merchant gently on the shoulder. "Who are you?" he asked, "and what are you doing here? Are you ill?" "Ill," said the merchant in a hollow voice. "Yes, ill with a sickness for which there is no medicine." "Oh, nonsense!" cried Cushy Ram. "Come along with me. I know the medicine that will cure you, I think." And the young man seized the merchant by the arm, and hoisting him to his feet, dragged him to his own lodging, where he first gave all a large glass of wine, and then, after he had refreshed him with food, bade him to tell his adventures. Meanwhile, the merchant's companions in the marketplace, being dull-witted persons, thought that he did not return, he must have gone himself home, and as soon as they were tired of waiting, they went back to their village and left him to look after his own affairs. He would, therefore, have fared badly had it not been for his rescuer, Cushy Ram, who, while still a boy, had been left a great deal of money with no one to advise him how to spend it. He was a high-spirited, kind-hearted, and shrewd into the bargain, but he threw his money away like water, and generally upon the nearest thing or person in his way, and that, alas, most often was himself. Now, however, he had taken it into his head to befriend this miserable merchant, and he meant to do it, and on his side the merchant felt confidence revive, and without further ado told all that had happened. Cushy Ram laughed heartily at the idea of any stranger entrusting his wealth to Beeka Mole. "Why, he is the greatest rascal in the city," he cried. Unless you believe what some of them say of me, well, there's nothing to be done for the present. But just stay here quietly, and I think that at the end of a short time I shall find which medicine will heal your sickness." And at this the merchant again took courage, and a little ease crept into his heart as he gratefully accepted his new friend's invitation. A few days later, Kishiram sent for some friends to see him, and talked with them long, and although the merchant did not hear the conversation, he did hear shouts of laughter, as though at some good joke. But the laughter echoed dully in his own heart, for the more he considered, the more he despaired of ever recovering his fortune from the grasp of Beeka-Mo. One day, soon after this, Kishiram came to him and said, "You remember the wall where I found you that night, near Beeka-Mo's shop?" "Yes, indeed I do," answered the merchant. "Well," continued Kishiram, "this afternoon you must go and stand at the same spot and watch, and when someone gives you a signal, you must go to Beeka-Mo and salute him and say, 'Oh, Lala Ji, will you kindly let me have back the box of mine which I have on trust?'" "Oh, what's the use of that?" asked the merchant. "He won't do it any more now than he would have when I asked him before." "Never mind," replied Kishiram. "Do exactly what I tell you and repeat exactly what I say, word for word, and I will answer for the rest." So, that afternoon, the merchant at a certain time went and stood by the wall as he was told. He noticed that Beeka-Mo saw him, but neither took any heed of the other. Presently up the bazaar came a gorgeous palanquin like those which ladies of rank are carried about. It was borne by 4 bearers, well dressed in rich liveries, and its curtains and trappings were truly magnificent. In attendance was a grave-looking personage, whom the merchant recognized as one of the friends who visited Kishiram. Behind him came a servant with a box covered with a cloth upon his head. The palanquin was borne along at a smart pace, and was set down at Beeka-Mo's shop. The fat shopkeeper was on his feet at once, and bowed deeply as the gentleman in attendance advanced. "May I inquire," he said, "who is in this palanquin that designs to favor my humble shop with a visit, and what may I do for her?" The gentleman, after whispering at the curtain of the palanquin, explained that this was a relative of his who was traveling, but her husband could go no further with her, and she desired to leave Beeka-Mo a box of jewels for safe custody. Lala bowed again to the ground. "It is not," he said, "quite in his way of business, of course, but if he could please the lady, he would most be happy, and would guard the box with his life." When the servant carrying the box was called up, the box was unlocked, and a mass of jewelry laid open to the gaze that enraptured the Lala, whose mouth watered as he turned over the rich gems. All of this the merchant had watched from a distance, and now he saw. Could he be mistaken? No, he distinctly saw a hand beckoning through the curtain on that side of the palanquin away from the shop. The signal! Was that the signal? He thought. And the hand beckoned again, impatiently it seemed to him. And so forward he went, very quietly, and saluting Beeka-Mo, who was sitting turning over the contents of the amazing box of jewels which Fortune and some fools were putting into his care. "Oh, Lala Ji, will you kindly let me have back the box of mine which you have on trust?" The Lala looked up as though he had been stung, but quickly the thought flashed through his mind that if the man began making a fuss again, he would lose the confidence of these new and richer customers. So he controlled himself. "Dear me, of course, yes, I'd forgotten all about it." And he went off and brought the little box and put it in the merchant's trembling hands. Quickly the latter pulled out a key which hung by a string around his neck and opened the box, and when he saw that his treasures were all there, he rushed into the road and, with the box under his arm, began dancing like a madman with great shouts and screams of laughter. Just then a messenger came running up, and saluting the gentleman attending the palanquin, he said, "My lady's husband has returned and is preparing to travel with her, so there's no necessity to deposit the jewels." Whereat the gentleman quickly closed and relocked the box, and handed it back to the waiting servant. Then from the palanquin came a yell of laughter, and out jumped, not a lady, but Kishiram, who immediately ran after and joined the merchant in the middle of the road and danced as madly as he. Beacamo stood and stared stupidly at them. Then, with a shrill cackle of laughter, he flung off his turban and bounced ahead of the road with the other two, and fell to dancing and snapping his fingers until he was out of breath. "Valagi," said the gentleman who had played the part of the relative attendant on the palanquin. "Why do you dance? The merchant dances because he has recovered his fortune. Kushiram dances because he is a madman and has tricked you. But why do you dance?" "I dance," panted Beacamo, glaring at him with a bloodshot eye. "I dance because I knew 13 different ways of deceiving people by pretending confidence in them. I didn't know there were any more, and now there's a 14th, and that is why I dance."